I'm back. Let's do a prediction video. Yeah. So yeah, welcome back to the tailgate. It's time for a prediction video. Finally, 2 weeks in a row with prediction videos. Yeah, a lot of energy. I'm really excited for this week of games because I actually got 10 games to pick from. And what makes it interesting is that we actually got some good group of 5 games, which I'm excited to talk about. But let's stop the introduction. Let's get on to our top 10 games. The first game we're looking at is a Friday night game as we have Tulane taking on Memphis. I'm very excited for this game as not only is it one of the really good group of 5 games we got, but it's also a Tulane game, and they're on a bye week, so I'm just ready to see how they play. These teams both have pretty similar offenses, which is the big part of these teams. Both do have some pretty good defenses, however, Tulane does have the edge in most defensive statistics. When you look at their offense, though, they're both very similar. A lot of speed on the receiving cores. The big one is Tulane has Lawrence Keys, and Memphis has Rock Taylor. Of course, the quarterbacks are both really good. Seth Hennigan has been pretty solid, and Michael Pratt's been good when he's playing. These two teams' only losses are pretty close games to Power 5 teams that at one point were ranked or are in the rankings. Memphis lost to Missouri, and Tulane lost to Ole Miss. I'm very excited to look at this game because, in my opinion, I think whoever wins this game is the best group of 5 team. I do think Tulane is going to win, and it's going to be an extremely close game, though, as these teams are just so even. I think Tulane is going to win 31-28. It's going to be very close, and it's probably going to come down to like a field goal. The second game for me takes us to our Saturday slate, as I'm looking at Tennessee versus Texas A&M. Texas A&M is coming off a pretty tough loss to Bama, where they played them close, but their offense really fell apart in the second half as Bama's defense changed up and just kept them in check. Tennessee is coming off some pretty impressive wins against UTSA and South Carolina. However, Tennessee is still a very skeptical team to some people, as their offense has been pretty questionable at times, and of course their defense still isn't the best. A&M does have a really good defense though, so a win for Tennessee against the A&M defense could prove that Tennessee is actually a pretty solid team. But again, that's the thing. Texas A&M has a really good defense on both the passing and rushing attack, so it's going to be very hard for Joe Milton to make any plays, but I think he'll still make a few, of course, with that big arm. Max Johnson, he played all right, but I don't think he's on Milton's level. So it's definitely just kind of how does Milton play against this A&M defense. And I think also with Tennessee at home, it's going to give Tennessee a big advantage, and I think Joe Milton will make those big plays to seal the deal. I do think it's going to be close, like most of these games are going to be. So I think Tennessee is going to win 28-24. The next game for me is a Big Ten game, as we have Wisconsin versus Iowa. I'm excited for this game, as this is the 2 best teams in that division playing, and that division is not that good. So having the only 2 good teams play each other will be pretty fun. Iowa, of course, has a really good defense, led by the linebacker duo of Jay Higgins and Nick Jackson. And then for Wisconsin, they're led by their running back duo of Braylon Allen and Chez Malusi. So that's gonna be pretty fun to see them play out. The big issue for these 2 teams comes with Wisconsin's quarterback, mainly. Tanner Mordecai has not been what I thought he was gonna be, and he's just not been playing that great. And then for Iowa, it's just kind of their whole offense, really. It's not that good. It's slightly better than last year, but that's not saying much. However, I just think with Iowa's defense and with how lackluster Mordecai's been playing, I think Iowa will do enough to win the game and be able to contain that running attack at least enough to win the game. I think Iowa's going to win 20-17. A lot of our really good games are night games, and this is the start of it, as the next game I'm looking at is Air Force versus Wyoming. I have Wyoming ranked, as I do think they're one of the best group of 5 teams, probably the best one as of right now. Will probably change depending on who wins between Tulane and Memphis, and of course if Wyoming wins this game or not. Air Force is a pretty tough team. Of course, they're an option team, and it is crazy looking at their team right now. They already have 5 guys with 150 plus rushing yards, Of course, the two big names are their quarterback, Zach Lear, and their leading running back, Emmanuel Michael. And of course, Air Force has still a really good defense returning from last year, which makes sense while they're undefeated. They just have a lot of talent returning from last year. Really, the only big piece they're losing was Brad Roberts, and they seem to be doing just fine without him. For Wyoming, they too have a pretty solid defense, not as good as Air Force's, and their offense is a pretty balanced offense. Their quarterback for Wyoming, Andrew Presley, has been playing pretty solid for Wyoming. And again, I think the big thing for Wyoming is their defense. It's not as good as Air Force's, but it's very solid. I think the highlight was when they held Texas in check for a long time until Texas finally picked it up in the fourth quarter. But I think Texas only had about 10 points going into that fourth quarter, so it was very impressive. I would like Wyoming to win this game because, like I said, I do think they're the best Group of 5 team right now. But I just think with Air Force's better defense, their loaded option attack, and with them at home, I think it's just too much for Wyoming to handle. So I think with that, Air Force is going to win 42-31. Another night game I have is LSU versus Auburn. Now, you would assume looking at the spread and everything that this would not be a close game, but it's a rivalry game. Typically when these teams play, it's always close. LSU is coming off a big win against Missouri, and Auburn is coming off a very close loss to Georgia, which proved that Auburn can't compete with some of these teams. LSU has a way better passing attack than Auburn does. However, their rushing attacks are about equal, as Auburn's rushing attack is pretty similar to Air Force, as they have a lot of running backs with over 130 plus rushing yards. In fact, they have 5. The leading one being Jarquez Hunter with 200. And then on LSU side, they have their two-headed monster of Logan Diggs and Jaden Daniels. And of course, that's why their passing attack is so good, because of Jaden Daniels. The defense is where you kind of look at things. LSU's defense is pretty bad. They looked good in the second half, but their defense is still not the best. While Auburn has a pretty solid defense. They proved that it can definitely hold some of these really good offenses, as they held Georgia to 27 and so on. With LSU at home, it definitely doesn't make it easy for Auburn, but with LSU's defense looking pretty bad, I think there's going to be a lot of points, especially for Auburn's rushing attack. I feel like they're going to run all over LSU. But I eventually think LSU will get a big play on defense, or an Auburn will make a mistake, and then Jaden Daniels will capitalize, and now we'll seal the deal. So I think LSU is going to win 38-35. The next game is a ranked matchup, as we have USC taking on Notre Dame. These teams are kind of struggling going into this game. Notre Dame is 1-2 in their last 3 games, all against ranked teams, which doesn't look good for them. While USC is undefeated, their last 3 games have been pretty disappointing. Their defense has been playing really bad, and they're playing close with some pretty okay to bad teams. They struggled with Arizona State, as they went to 3 overtimes, and then Colorado almost came back, and Arizona played pretty close, but they are undefeated still. USC is, of course, led by Caleb Williams, last year's Heisman, and of course he's still a candidate this year. And then they have 2 really good players with running back Marshawn Lloyd and wide receiver Taj Washington. So they do have a pretty solid offense, just that their defense is not that good, as it's been shown these last 3 games. Notre Dame, of course, has a pretty good offensive talent on their own. They have Sam Hartman, Audric Estem, and Mitchell Evans. And their defense does look a lot better than USC's, but their offense has stagnated against these ranked teams. However, I think with them playing against a Lincoln Riley defense, they'll be just fine, and we're going to finally get some points from Notre Dame. And I think this game will be a shootout, but I think USC will pull ahead and just really seal Notre Dame's fate, as I think USC is going to win 48-44. The next game I'm looking at is North Carolina versus Miami. This is a ranked matchup, yet I don't agree it's a ranked matchup. I think Miami's loss knocked them out the rankings, but they are ranked, so it's a ranked matchup. Looking at this game, I'm looking at the quarterbacks mainly. Drake May last week had his first good game. Tyler Van Dyke had his first bad game. So we're kind of starting to see a pattern as these teams face each other. On the defensive side, Miami has an amazing defense. Their rushing defense is one of the best in the country. North Carolina's defense is also pretty solid, but not on the same level as Miami. However, I think North Carolina's offense is way better. Of course, with Drake May playing really good, and then more on Hampton, and then their receiver Nate McCullum, and then with Tez Walker back, it's just a lot of weapons for North Carolina, especially weapons that they don't particularly need on the ground game, which could really hurt Miami, as if North Carolina just keeps throwing through the air, then Miami's kind of in a bad spot, especially with how their DBs played against Georgia Tech. I think with North Carolina at home and with just them getting good at the right time, especially Drake May playing so good at the right time, I think they'll win and give Miami a second straight loss, as I think North Carolina is going to win 41-31. The next game I'm looking at is Missouri versus Kentucky. These teams are both coming off 2 bad losses to end their undefeated seasons. But this is, of course, a chance for them to bounce back as they're playing each other, ironically. Missouri is coming off of a shootout loss to LSU, while Kentucky is coming off a really bad blowout to Georgia. Kentucky is led by a really strong defense, and their offense is led by Ray Davis, who's really good, one of the best running backs in the country. Kentucky's defense, I like to talk to, has been good on all sides. They get a lot of sacks, they get a lot of tackles. Their best player on defense is Maxwell Hairston, who's been really good for them. He was really good in that big win against Florida, and he's been really good the whole season. For Missouri, their defense isn't really as good. They really did show their weakness on defense against LSU, and just mainly most of the teams they've played, their defense hasn't been spectacular. It's just their monstrous offense. They're led by Brady Cook at quarterback, who had his first okay game against LSU. He had his first picks, but he still played pretty solid. And then you have Cody Schrader, who's been a really good running back. He played good against LSU. And then Luke Burton, who played really good against LSU, and he can be argued as maybe the best receiver in college football. I do think this will be a very fun game, but I just think with Missouri having more weapons on offense, it's going to really hurt Kentucky, as their offense is kind of limited to just Ray Davis, as Devin Leary hasn't shown up yet. So with that, I think Missouri's going to win, and I think they're going to win 38-28. The next game I'm looking at is UCLA versus Oregon State. These teams played 2 completely different games last week, as UCLA upset Washington State, shutting down Cameron Ward and their offense, winning 25-17, while Oregon State played a shootout with Cal, winning 52-40, which kind of changes my perspective on how I thought this game would look. Oregon State's defense has been all right. They've played pretty well, except for 2 big games, them being against Washington State and Cal. The Washington State game is the one I really look at, as they could not defend against Cameron Ward, while UCLA did it perfectly. UCLA's offense isn't as potent as Oregon State's, as Oregon State is led by DJ Uiagalelei. I probably really pronounced that name wrong, but you know who I'm talking about. He's been playing really good. Damian Martinez has been a really good running back for Oregon State, and then their receiver Silas Bolden has, of course, been really good for them too. He played really good against Utah. That was a big reason for their win against them. UCLA, like I said, their offense isn't really that good. Carson Steele has been pretty solid for them at running back, but of course it's UCLA's defense. Their rushing defense is insane. Their passing defense is really good, as they're led by defensive lineman Latu. I'm not really good with those names, but he's been a beast. 5 sacks, 2 fumbles, 1 pick. He's been a monster for them so far. And I just think with how good they play against Washington State, I think that's just really going to help against Oregon State, a team that could not contain Washington State. So I think with that, UCLA is going to win this game 28-21. The last game I'm looking at is, I think you know what, Washington versus Oregon at Washington. Top 10 matchup. I cannot wait. This is a matchup that will decide who the best team in the Pac-12 is. I think that is no question. This game will decide it. The amount of offensive talent these teams have is so crazy. I literally had to write it down. I'm not even going to worry about the defenses. This is going to be a shootout. If I see any lick of defense, I'm going to be shocked watching this game. But looking at their offenses, Of course, the main thing is quarterbacks, Bo Nix and Michael Penix. And these are two top 5 quarterbacks. Michael Penix, I think, is the front runner for the Heisman, and Bo Nix is definitely right on his tail. I would put Bo Nix, as of right now, probably 3rd or 4th behind Daniels and maybe Caleb Williams, but it's still crazy. And then when you look at these offenses outside of their quarterback, Washington has a much better passing offense statistically wise than Oregon, but Oregon makes up for it by having a statistically better rushing attack than Washington. It is crazy. For Oregon, that running attack is mainly led by Bucky Irving and Jordan James, who have both been playing really good for them. Bucky Irving has more yards. Jordan James has the touchdowns mainly. But of course, Oregon does have a really good receiver in Troy Franklin. He's been one of the best in the country. He's been the best receiver beyond a shadow of a doubt. When you look at Washington, they don't really have much of a rushing attack. It's of course just Michael Penix throwing dots to his receivers. His 2 best being Romo Dunes and Jalen Polk. I'm just excited for this game. I mean, like I said, the offensive talent on display is going to be absurd. I'm excited. And I think with Washington at home, and I do think Michael Penix is a better quarterback, I think that's enough for me to say that Washington is going to win this game 41-38. And that wraps up my top 10 games of the week. So yeah, that's the video. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, unless I picked your team to lose. But if I'm wrong, then hey, come back and just tell me I'm an idiot. I'll be fine with that. I'm always up for a good laugh. Hope y'all enjoyed the video. Like, favorite, subscribe if you had, and I'll be back Monday to recap these games.